Welcome back to the program. This election is coming to a close, and as it looked like Donald Trump was getting the best out of Kamala Harris, the Democrats have decided over the last few days to embrace fake news in full force, and it seems to be moving the needle. Now, throughout this election cycle, of course, the Democrats have engaged into fake news despite blaming and pointing the finger at Donald Trump, saying he's the one who's engaging in fake news. They pushed out a lot of misleading information about Donald Trump already for years. As we remember, the Charlottesville comment, find people on both sides, the inject yourself with bleach during COVID, and the Donald Trump will be a dictator on day one comment. Everything taken out of context and recontextualized in a way to mislead people and make it seem as if Donald Trump had said something different than what he had actually said. And yesterday, they did it again with statements of Donald Trump while he was in an interview with Tucker Carlson, and they took the statements he made about Liz Cheney out of context to make it seem like Donald Trump is calling for the execution of Liz Cheney via firing squad. Let's have a look at this, and we're going to look first at the statements of Donald Trump, a 1-minute clip to offer a little bit of context, and then we will look at the out-of-context statement taken from Donald Trump and the analysis of the media. Let's see now this comment. So here is the 1-minute clip that will get you a little bit of context here.
Cheney was he said, I really want to thank you. He said, now I'm so glad that I actually endorsed you. It's amazing, but that you would do this. And I didn't speak to him about it. But then, go a couple of years forward or go now, and I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter, but his daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. When the guns are trained on her face. They're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. But she's a stupid person. And I used to I'd have meetings with a lot of people, and she always wanted to go to war with people.
All right, so here we've seen the comments, and clearly Donald Trump is making what is called the chicken hawk argument, saying, oh, well, Liz Cheney, she's fine being in office and sending people to war, but if we were to send her to war, then she wouldn't feel the same way about sending or starting wars all around the place. Now, of course, you'll remember Liz Cheney, the daughter of Dick Cheney, who was one of the architects of the Iraq War. But if you listen to these comments, then it's quite clear what Donald Trump meant. Maybe the way he used it as an example wasn't the best way to do it, especially in an election season that's disputed the way this one is. And perhaps he should have known that his word could have been taken out of context, but it is clear that he didn't mean that he wanted to execute Liz Cheney with a firing squad. That was not at all what he was saying. He clearly was saying if she was on the front line in this war in Ukraine, she wouldn't feel the same way about starting a war. Now, let's have a look here at this tweet from Aaron Rupar that has already in 1 day or a little bit more now, 2 days, 32 million views just for one clip here of 20 seconds. And basically they clipped out just this part of the statement of Donald Trump. Let's have a listen.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. When the guns are trained on her face.
And so they took this clip out, just saying, let's put her in front of 9 barrel firing at her and let's see how she feels. Clearly taking out of context everything that came before, mentioning about the war and everything that came after from the statements. And of course, that was what the media needed to sort of go on this coordinated campaign of disinformation. And you can see here all the media outlets coming together really to create this narrative around the words that Donald Trump says. So here you have Reuters. Trump suggests Liz Cheney should face firing squad for her foreign policy stance. CNN, Trump says war hawk Liz Cheney should be fired upon in escalation of violent rhetoric against his opponents. The Washington Post, Trump suggests war hawk Liz Cheney should have gun trained on her face. Rolling Stone, Trump fantasizes about putting Liz Cheney in front of firing squad. New York Times, Trump attacks Liz Cheney using violent war imagery, and so on and so forth. Basically, they're all agreeing that the narrative is Donald Trump wants to execute Liz Cheney in a firing squad. And let's have a listen now to what they were saying on cable TV here. We're going to start with CNN. This is going to be a little montage where we're going to see all the reaction of the TV pundits.
Breaking news. Donald Trump took his violent rhetoric to a new extreme, suggesting the former Republican Congresswoman should be fired upon.
Breaking news. Trump under investigation for saying, quote, war hawk Liz Cheney should be fired upon.
Right now on ABC News Live, he suggested 9 barrels of a firing squad aimed right at her.
Donald Trump declaring before a crowd that Cheney should be put before a firing line.
With the battle over women voters raging, Donald Trump suggests putting Liz Cheney in the firing line.
Now you have this threat against Liz Cheney that Trump is talking about a firing squad.
The Drudge Report, Trump calls for Cheney execution.
He's saying quite explicitly and unambiguously that Liz Cheney should be shot, should be executed by firing squad.
He directly said what he thinks should happen to Liz Cheney just because she disagrees with him.
He basically called for executing Liz Cheney.
Talking about putting Liz Cheney in front of the firing squad.
He actually suggested that Liz Cheney should face a firing squad.
Guns being trained on a political opponent.
Guns being trained on a political opponent.
He would like to see guns aimed at Liz Cheney's face.
9 barrels pointed at Liz Cheney is the latest escalation.
Using the military to kill a political rival.
We've graduated to firing squads and execution.
He really wants to kill with a firing squad his political opponents.
Sounds like to me he just thought she needed to die.
Trump was suggesting a firing squad.
Evoking images of a firing squad, of an assassination. What's your response to Donald Trump saying she should be fired, that Liz Cheney should be fired upon?
Donald Trump's closing argument has been Puerto Rico's an island of trash. I'm not a Nazi. Liz Cheney should be in front of a firing squad.
He's talking about a firing squad for his political enemies.
A firing squad, a military tribunal.
Talking about sending a prominent Republican to the firing squad.
He's imagining and in some sense kind of getting off on the image, the idea of Liz Cheney being put in front of a bunch of weapons and having them shot at her.
I'm just kind of confused about the hyperventilating around this on the right. He literally said rifles being trained at Liz Cheney.
And this is both the rhetoric and the imagery of Stalin. It's intended to be about death.
He's talking about training a rifle at Liz Cheney and a firing squad. My God.
Who does he want to kill if he becomes president?
So for him to call for Liz Cheney to be set up before a firing squad?
Firing squad, essentially, or something, for a political opponent.
Liz Cheney needs to be in a firing squad.
He's talking about a firing squad for Liz Cheney.
A firing squad for a fellow Republican, fellow American.
Put Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad.
Mark Milley was his Joint Chiefs of Staff chair. John Kelly was his chief of staff. He now wants to put those same people before a firing squad. No matter matter how loyal you've been in the past, it doesn't matter. Stephen Miller feels safe now. But let him look at Donald Trump sideways one day, and he'll be the one Donald Trump is saying should be before a firing squad.
If you were busy today and you only saw the headlines, you may be under the impression that the former president called Liz Cheney, well, called for her to face a firing squad. The former president was actually mocking Cheney as someone who, you know, pushes for war from the comforts of Washington, D.C.
All right, so here you can see this montage, and you can clearly see it is not just one journalist making a mistake, misinterpreting the comments or seeing the clip out of context and jumping to a conclusion. Here you have, it's a 4-minute montage. Here, you know, many journalists, many different cable news networks. It's a coordinated campaign, really, to push a narrative that is simply not true. There was no mention of a firing squad anywhere in the statement of Donald Trump, but by taking, of course, this clip out of context, you can make it seem like that's what he was referring to. And so, in the end, of course, not everybody agreed with that, and even people on the left. First, let's have a look here at Kamala Harris, because so far, of course, it was the media that was talking about the statements of Trump, and it wasn't a direct comment or analysis from the Harris campaign engaging in fake news, but here is Kamala Harris doing the same, jumping on the train and also engaging in fake news.
And then, even worse, he has increased his violent rhetoric, Donald Trump has, about political opponents, and in great detail, suggested rifles should be trained on former Representative Liz Cheney.
And so, as you can see, Kamala Harris a little bit more prudent than the pundits on the cable news networks. She did not mention a firing squad because that was never mentioned in the original comments of Donald Trump, but still running with the same narrative that, oh, he wants to have barrels pointing at his political opponents, implying that he wants to execute them. Now, not everybody, even on the left, was happy with that. Not everybody was on board, and I'm going to point out to a few people here on the Democrat side who actually disagree with that technique of fake news, of embracing fake news. And here we have Joe Walsh, former congressman, I believe, from Massachusetts, former candidate for president and a Kamala Harris surrogate. He is campaigning for her as we speak. And here is what he said on Twitter. Trump did not call for Liz Cheney to be executed. This is what is so wrong with our politics today. You know how I feel about Trump, and I've been out there every day for 2 or 3 months campaigning to help get Kamala Harris elected. But this short clip is so deceptive. Trump is not calling for Liz Cheney to be executed in front of a firing line. He's not. Listen to the entirety of what he said. In Trump's typically stupid, ugly fashion, he's trying to make a point about Cheney's stance on war. But Aaron, who was the first person who posted that clip on Twitter, who's got 30 million views now, by posting only this 11-second clip, makes it look like he's calling for her to be executed. He's not. He's an utterly horrible human being who's utterly unfit for office. But the truth should always matter. And the truth is that Trump is not calling for Liz Cheney to be executed, but his 11-second clip will have a gazillion views, and the truth will have just a handful of views. And he is very right on this. As we see, the clip didn't get a gazillion view, but it still got 34 million views out of the original. And you know, if you think about how many times this was reposted on perhaps Twitter or even other platforms, I'm sure this clip now has hundreds of millions of views, if not billions of impressions here over the last 2 days. But Joe Walsh here from someone who's actually campaigning now for Kamala Harris, one of his surrogates, refusing to embrace and endorse fake news. Kudos to him. Good for him for not wanting to sort of lower the quality of the debate. And, when the left is always pointing at Donald Trump as a source and a propagator of fake news, then just 3 days now before this election, the Democrats deciding to go full force into fake news here. It's good to see that he is breaking ranks, and we'll see what happens to him if they take it kindly or not. But let's move here to another one that deserves to be mentioned. Cenk Uygur, the CEO, founder, and the main anchor of the Young Turks, one, if not the biggest leftist podcast on the internet, who gets a lot of views. Just this tweet alone got 1.5 million views. He says, Donald Trump did not call for the execution of Liz Cheney. This is a bold-faced lie. He was making a point about how she is a chicken hawk, but also Trump shouldn't talk about guns being trained on her face, especially in a time where we're worried about political violence. Now, of course, he's right, I think, on a lot of his comment here. But once again, Cenk Uygur is not someone who you would expect to actually break ranks. Cenk Uygur, he is not a cable news or broadcast news anchor. He is just a sort of YouTube podcaster. Although he is one of the biggest podcasters on the left, he doesn't also want to go along with this fake narrative, and good for him. And now it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Young Turks, because now, just a few days before this election, at a moment so crucial, what will be the repercussion for someone who's on the left and decides to embrace the truth instead of embracing fake news at a time where perhaps fake news is needed for the Democrats to carry Kamala Harris over the line? Let's have a look here at the next one. And the next one is going to be Bill Maher. And Bill Maher, now for a while, he has been sort of on the moderate side of the Democrats, and he's been criticizing a lot of what we've seen of the Democrats and sort of the tactics of the left that are sort of getting out of hands now. They are doing exactly what they claim
what do you make of
the opposition is doing.
I woke up today to the headline that Trump had called for a firing squad for Liz Cheney. And this is what I really don't like about the media. No, he didn't.
He did not.
You don't have to move me to not like Donald Trump.
He says
more
so
than
many
I
shitty
already,
things. Why do you have to
And
do
by
that?
the way,
Yeah.
if you Pete don't realize it, well, here's what he said. He's criticizing him for being a war hawk. I mean, she is Dick Cheney's daughter. He said, she's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay. Let's see how she feels about it. They're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, we'll send tens of thousands of troops right into the mouth of the enemy. Now, of course, he expresses himself horribly. He has to add she's a stupid person because he's a moron.
Trump knows what it's really like from Vietnam.
Okay. But just to be clear, this is exactly what hippies always said. This is exactly what peaceniks always said. This is Fortunate Son, the song. It's like, you know what? It's very easy to sit in your building and send young men to die, apropos of Ukraine.
Yes.
Because, I don't know, that war doesn't look like it's going in the right direction.
Not at all, no.
But just so, just don't lie to me. I don't like Donald Trump. Don't lie to me and tell me he wants in front of a firing squad. He was saying something that, by the way, if it came out of the mouth, some of it, not the stupid part, again, sounds like what hippies used to say about
Bill,
not sending people to, yes.
And here, Bill Maher, as we said, Bill Maher, of course, he's not going to embrace fake news on his show. He has been pushing back a lot, even though he's a Democrat, he's a leftist, but he has not been going along with a lot of the insanity that has been going on in the left. And here he is on his show, on his HBO show, which gets a lot of views, and a lot of views in the Democrat circles and Democratic voters, sort of denouncing the fake news operation of the mainstream media. And so now we've seen sort of this the spectrum of what happened around this fake news, and how the out of context comments of Donald Trump were sort of weaponized to shape this narrative. And let's go now to how this has impacted really the election odds. And as you can see, Donald Trump now 58% in the lead. Just one day ago, he was a 2-for-1 favorite in this race. He was at 67% in just one day, with one fake news that got God knows how many impressions, God knows how many views. The Democrats have managed to climb up almost 10 points in these prediction markets. As you can see here, Donald Trump was really going way ahead here, up to 67% on October 30th at 5 a.m. And here we are now on November 2nd, he's at 58. So 9 points difference. One fake news, 9 points ahead, or 9 points back for Kamala Harris, who was at 33%. It was a very difficult situation, and perhaps this is why they did it. Perhaps the situation was that desperate that they needed a fake news to try to turn the tide around. But anyways, now there's only a few days left. We will see if this fake news is going to be the element that's going to turn around this election, and will it carry Kamala Harris over the line? We will have to see, because we're now only 3 days away from the election, and a lot of people, hundreds of millions of people, hundreds of millions of views probably on this clip, and a lot of people will have seen that. They will have seen the mainstream media saying Donald Trump wants to execute Liz Cheney in a firing squad, and they will not have the opportunity to see the other side, to actually see the reality of those comments before the election happens. So perhaps this is the strategy for the Democrats. But just a few days to go. I encourage all of you to go vote for the candidate of your choice, and take into consideration this fake news event. And you know, one thing that I wanted to mention is that for a lot of times now, and Tim Walz repeated it in the debate that he had against J.D. Vance, the Democrats have been calling for curtailment of the First Amendment. They want to control free speech. They want to control speech, whether online or otherwise. And they want to have a say, and they want to be able to point out to what is misinformation or disinformation or malinformation. Some of you will remember the Biden administration tried to put Nina Jankowicz as a misinformation czar. They tried to create this office that would have given this crazy woman the ability to decide what is real information, what is misinformation, and that would have given her the ability to censor people and censor companies. And really, this is a perfect example, I think, into why laws about misinformation should not really be even thought about. Because think about it this way. You have this out of context comment from Donald Trump that's being taken, and then it's being pushed as a narrative. And if we had today laws about misinformation, what do you think would be classified as misinformation? would the reporting from CNN, from MSNBC, and from all the major news outlets in the country, would this be referred as misinformation? Or would it be people who take the original clip within context and say what was meant by Donald Trump? No, of course, that would be the misinformation. The fake news would be the real information, and everybody who says otherwise, anybody who doesn't follow the narrative that is pushed by the mainstream media, they would be singled out as being misinformation, and they would be canceled, they would be censored. And even this video, if such law existed, this video here, where I'm actually showing you both sides, I'm showing you who said what and what was the analysis of the media, this would be considered misinformation, not because there is anything that is false in terms of information in this video, but just because it doesn't follow the narrative that the mainstream media and a potential office of misinformation would want, then it would be either what they say is true, or whoever has an opinion or a narrative that is different from the one that they want to push is labeled as misinformation. So think about it. When you go vote in this election, if you want, people to be able to say what they want and say what they think freely without being censored online, well, you should carefully watch what has been the discourse in this political campaign before you make your choice. I'm not going to tell you who you vote for. It's up to you. And the only thing I will tell you is go out there and vote, make your voice be heard, and don't let other people make a decision about your future without you having a say in it. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and I will see you on the next one.
Hit me with that like, and sub to the channel. Hit me with that like, and click the effing bell. Click that bit, alright. The algo recommends for she go like. The algo knows you well. Hit me with that like, subscribe to the channel. Hit me with that like, and click the effing bell.